Hi everybody, PJ Clanton with Entegra Coach Motorized Technical Training. Today we are going to do a delivery walkthrough of the 2025 Cornerstone. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to walk right across the coach here and just go straight down the passenger side and around the outside first. We're just going to give you an idea of some of the things on the delivery list of how to operate and where things are at in the coach. So we'll start right here with our keyless entry system, just on the grab handle. Again, this is something that you will need to program. You are going to program your own 5-digit access code into this door handle to be able to use this as a remote access to your coach. So simply to lock all the doors, press and hold the 1 button. Locks everything and sets the alarm. To unlock, you'll put in your 5-digit access code and then choose one of these numbers depending on what you want to do. So if you just press the 1 button after, it just does the entry door. If you do the 2 button after, it does the entry and the cargo. If you do the 3 button after your 5-digit access code, it will only do the cargo door. So we're just going to go ahead and unlock everything again. And that does our entry doors and our cargo doors. So now we have opened up and gotten access. Again, you want to program your own 5-digit access code into the system. If you need help with that, you can have your dealer help you with that, or you can call into our customer call center and we will also help you with that process. All right. So we're going to make our way back down the coach. One thing we want to note is inside the wheel well, while you guys are driving, anytime you take your coach out on the road, there are some air lanyards in there that you will need to be checking and pulling. Those are for the chassis, so it's a little bit of chassis maintenance here that we want you to know about as well. Is inside here, there's going to be 3 lanyards, silver, green, and red, and that's the order that you pull them in, silver, green, and red. It's the lanyards for the air tanks. That is to remove the moisture out of those tanks. So make sure you see your Spartan manual or your Freightliner manual to give you the instructions on how to use those and when to use those. As we work our way back down the coach, coming into the first cargo door here, there's going to be a few things in here that we're going to talk about. So on the Cornerstone, the leveling system is on the passenger side of the coach. So that's right here, accessible behind this panel. That is going to be your equalizer leveling system. That's the pump and everything is going to be back there. If you ever needed to add fluid to that, that is going to be right here behind this access panel. Moving back into the actual cargo tray, the first thing we're going to talk about is this little remote. This is for your Girard awnings. So this is for the 2 patio awnings at the roof. They are going to be done by channels. You have channel 1 and channel 2. So if we just hit this, it'll bring it up. It's on channel 0. That should operate both of those awnings. If you change this to channel 1, that's only the front awning. If you change it to channel 2, that should only be the rear awning. And then obviously you have your in and out. So you can press those buttons. I think it's about 3 seconds. You press that, it'll start to run the awning, and it'll run it all the way in or all the way out until it hits its limit switch. So that is the remote for outside. You can also operate that through your Firefly system on the screen inside or through the app provided by your Firefly system. The next thing here is our exterior freezer and cooler. This is a double cooler. So it has 2 different compartments here, and you can temperature control each one. Controls are over here on this side, and it is just run off of 12 volts. So there's just one single cord, one single plug. It's running off of DC power. So a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We used to have a 110, now we have the DC. We want that DC, it actually runs more efficient, and it's easier for us to manage in the coach. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the exterior TV. So in this compartment right here, this is our exterior TV entertainment center. You do have the JBL sound system. This will play the sound from the TV, as well as it is connected to the inside audio source, so you could play Sirius radio outside. It also has Bluetooth capabilities. You can Bluetooth the device right to it, and this USB port. So you could physically put a USB that you have loaded music on, put it in here, and you can play it through this radio. The TV is on a swivel arm and a tilt, so get any glare or anything like that on the TV, you can run that out and you can tilt that up and down depending on how you need it. Simple, easy storage here. Now, the one thing is this door here you see is a little bit high, and for some of those that are vertically challenged, you may not be able to do that and reach up there. So we have included inside this compartment a little pull rod. So for those of you vertically challenged, right here, pull rod, this snaps back into place here. A couple little clips in there that we'll push that into. and then we can close this door back up. We want to make sure that when we close that, we do hear that click and snap into place. That's what keeps that seal and keeps water from getting in that compartment. This next basement compartment here is going to be a pass-through power cargo tray. So it is a powered cargo tray. The switch is on the door itself. There is a limitation to this cargo tray, so just to show you a little bit of how this operates. Power cargo tray comes out. Anytime you want to put anything in it, it is wise to do this so that you're not picking anything up and you can just simply slide things. A lot of people are putting totes in here. You can just slide the totes in and out, but be sure to put this back up and lock it in place. One thing we want to point out is the weight limit on that power cargo tray. So that is 1,000 pounds equally distributed across the tray, which means we can't necessarily put a 500-pound toolbox here and 100 pounds on the other side. We want this to be equally distributed so that weight is even across the entire thing. Another thing to be cautious of is the clearance you have between this and your frame rail. Just because we have this space here doesn't mean that's what we have in the center. So if you put something in the center that's too tall, it'll catch on those frame rails. This will stop. There are set limits on it. So when you go in, it's only going to go into its stop point and then it stops. Now from the other side, we'll be able to run it out the other direction, and it has stop points on that side as well. In the next compartment, same thing. Just another power cargo tray, which is a complete pass-through in the basement. Now there's a couple things that are down here in the basement. You did see in the previous door that there was a box of tile. That is extra tile for the inside of your coach that matches your floor. The other tray here has a pouch in it. That is the screen door. So that's for the entry door itself. We have a removable screen door, so while you're driving, you don't have that extra mesh in there that kind of creates a little bit of a blind spot. You can take that screen out while you're driving. In this next compartment here, we're going to talk about our battery disconnects and our electrical components. So these are our complete battery disconnects here. And we have another one right inside there. That is for the inverter. And then just inside there in that panel, this is a removable panel right here on this side. There's a lot of other electrical equipment in there, some fuses and breakers that we need to take a look at and show you exactly what those are, and we'll explain those here in just a second. So now that we're in this cargo area here, this is just a removable panel, just Velcroed in place here. So we can take that right out, lay it down. It does have a label here that gives you exactly what this M1 component is from Firefly, so it gives us all of our pinouts there if we needed them. The things that we need to show you in here are our fuse panels. So we have 2 fuse panels here, and then also our breakers. These are powering things like your toilets, the macerator, the trays, power cargo trays, everything are powered through these breakers. And then we have these fuses which are labeled accordingly. These 2 solenoids right here, 2 separate features. This is your battery disconnect. So this is what your main power switch right inside the door controls, is this guy here. And then this particular solenoid is our battery merge solenoid. So what that does is combines the house batteries with the chassis batteries. So if you ever got in the situation you had low house batteries, couldn't start your generator, you could essentially start your engine and use the battery boost switch that's on the driver's side console, and it would connect those 2 banks of batteries, giving us enough power to start that generator. Or the other way around, if your engine batteries are low and you can't quite start the engine, you could be plugged in or have the generator running, use the house batteries to help you start the engine as well. So some things to keep in mind. This box just in from us is the battery box, so your batteries are housed inside that box as well. That kind of wraps up what we have inside this compartment for our electrical components. The next compartment back from our electrical center there is going to be our fresh water tank. So from the passenger side in the fresh water tank, we just have this sight gauge here where you can see the level in the tank. And then we have this here. This is going to be our gravity fill. The one thing you want to remember about the gravity fill is that that water is not filtered before it goes into the tank. So you could possibly get some sediment or anything like that from your supply that would go in the tank. But if you use that water out of your tank and you're using the water pump, it will go through our whole house filter again, even though it didn't go through the filter the first time. So not to worry, even if you use your gravity fill, you are still getting filtered water inside the coach. We're going to move back to our next compartment here. That's going to be this real small door. This is going to be our depth fill. So this is the passenger side depth fill. Also, you will see in here there is a small manifold. That manifold is for the air leveling system. So those are Schrader valves where we can manually air up any of our airbags around the entire coach. So That would be needed in case somebody had to tow it or the air system wasn't working automatically. We could go in there and manually air up those bags. Another thing that's in here, like we talked about up front, are the lanyards. There is a lanyard just inside here beside the def tank. That is for your safe haul brake system. So this is for the brake system on your tow vehicle. There's a separate tank back here. You pull that, you can hear the air. You just want to pull that until the air just stops sputtering. If it's got any moisture in it, you'll hear it spit and sputter. Just keep pulling that until that's done. All right, there is another def fill on the other side because we do dual def fills. So we'll see that on the other side when we get there. This next compartment back here is the chassis run center. So basically what this is your chassis batteries. There's a couple filters back here, and then the 2 disconnects. The 2 disconnects are for your engine and also for that battery merge we talked about earlier. The bottom one here is the battery merge that connects these chassis batteries to our house batteries. That's to give you that extra voltage that we need, maybe when starting. And then this one here is your engine disconnect. So what that does is prevents you from starting the engine. That's key when you take the coach into a facility. Somebody's going to be working on it, or if you're back there checking fluids, you might want to turn that off so no one can inadvertently turn that key on and catch your hands inside that engine. Another thing in this compartment is this little guy right here. This is the Spartan fuse panel. So that is the rear fuse panel. What that will do is house your fuses for your trailer, for tow brakes, for the brake lights, for the turn signals, marker lights, and that thing on the trailer. So this is just a 1/4-inch turn, usually 1/4-inch turn right there, and then it comes off. It does have a label on the inside, gives you all the fuses and relays. They even put a couple extra fuses in there for you and a fuse puller. So to get that back on, again, it's just a 1/4-inch turn. We get it in place, and then it'll just snap in place. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the rear engine, the lid and the access to that, and that is simply controlled by the switch. So we're going to run that engine door up and get you access to the engine. So now that we have the engine lid up, we just want to show you a couple things, key points back here in the engine compartment that you'll want to check, whether it's fluids, and we got our block heater, places where you're going to want to do a normal check before you drive, and sometimes get that chassis maintenance done. So we know what we're looking at here. This one here is going to be your engine oil fill. So that is just where you would put extra oil if you needed to. This is the engine oil dipstick. That would give you your level of engine oil. This is our coolant level. So we want to make sure that this little sight glass right here is completely full of final charge antifreeze. This is going to be our block heater. So we provide this connection here. Simply just open this up, plug that in. Now the thing about the block heater is you're only going to want to use that when you are in sub-freezing, sub-zero temperatures, which is probably not likely. Most people are buying a motorhome to follow the sun, so very rarely that we're going to use that. We also have an engine preheat built into the Aqua-Hot system, which is probably more efficient than what the block heater is. Uses a lot less electricity to run the Aqua-Hot than it does the block heater. So another thing that's back here is your transmission. So this is to see the level of your transmission fluid. You would also use that to add transmission fluid. But the thing that we want to look at in this is that we're not necessarily paying attention to the dipstick here. We actually have a better way of doing that from the shifter pad by the driver's seat. So we'll talk about that when we get in there. Another thing that's all the way over here on the side, kind of hidden back here, is the air minder. That air minder is the gauge for your air filter. So that'll tell you if you have any restrictions in the air system here for the engine. One thing we want to know about this is that if it does go up into the red, before we decide, hey, we got an air restriction, we're going to come in here and just hit the bottom of this, let that fall back down, and then start the engine again and see if it will go right back up to the red. If it is in the red, obviously we need to get some maintenance done and we need to change out that air filter. The things down here by the hitch that we'll talk about, this is a 2.5-inch receiver. So if you have a 2-inch hitch that you're already using and you get one of our units, you're going to need to get an adapter for that. And also the safe haul, which is the little connection there down to the side, that is for your tow brake system. So Spartan provides that on the chassis. That is safe haul, what we call safe haul, and that is ready and available, equipped to drop in an Air Force One system in your tow vehicle, and that allows the coach to use its air system to apply brakes in your tow vehicle. So pretty neat feature there. All right, we're going to go around to the other side, and we'll start going up the driver's side. All right, as we make our way up the driver's side of the coach, this right here is our dual def. So we talked about that on the other side with the def tank being on the other side. This is just a dual fill. So you can fill it up from the same side When you drive through a truck stop, most of the time you're driving on this direction, you want to be able to fill up from here so you don't have to turn the bus around, go in backwards. That really doesn't make the truckers very happy. So this is that dual depth fill. We have implemented that on every floor plan now that it is on the driver's side as well. So dropped it down on the fender here so that it can be on every floor plan. As we move forward, the next hatch here is our macerator hose. So this is the macerator system, or the hose that empties all that out. This you can simply take out, run out to your dump, or there is an exit hole through the bottom here that has a cap on it. We can unscrew that cap, run the hose down through the center of that, and it can come out. If you're going to be there for a really, really long time, you're staying somewhere seasonal, we'd want to run that through there so we can close the door after we have that all hooked up. So it'll run right down through the bottom. That hose will stretch out 21 feet and go into your dump at your park, at your site there, and then we can show you how that works. Now, there is a couple fittings on here. This cap right here does have a hose fitting on the bottom of it. That's just for a 5/8 garden hose. If you needed that extra length, you could. Not usually, that's not something that we usually see, but it is possible to do that. So that macerator is capable of pumping 250 feet, and a 1-inch incline has got some power behind it, and you can use that garden hose if we had to. In this next compartment is our wet bay, and we're going to spend a little bit of time inside here because we got to take that wall off as well and show you some key things behind there. But we'll just start and go right across the wall here so we can show you what we have going on. This first is going to be your hose reel right here and your freshwater inlet. So fresh water is coming in, you just pull your hose out, hook it up to the post, and then you're getting fresh water into your coach through this connection. The one thing you can do is we can fill up the fresh water tank from here, or we can use city fill. That's what this valve right here is for. So in this position, we're using it as a city fill hookup. If we turn this to the horizontal position, that is allowing us to fill our fresh water tank. So your fresh water tank will hold 100 gallons. Its actually usable capacity is about 92 gallons because we are doing a pickup off the side rather than the bottom. That way, if you had sediment in the bottom of the tank, you're not picking it up through the draw tube into your pump or into your plumbing system. So it is 100-gallon capacity, but it's only about 92 usable gallons in there. This next port here on the wall is going to be for your tank flush. So that is allowing you to flush out your black sewage tank or your gray water holding tank. All depends on how you have this valve. So here's our little label here. Right now we're going to clean out the black tank. If we turn this vertical, we will be flushing out the gray tank. So we now have the ability to flush out both of those tanks. It is highly recommended that you get in another hose dedicated specifically for that. Don't use the drinking water. Don't take this off and put it over here. Definitely don't put a Y in between those two because that causes problems in the plumbing system anytime you get into high elevation. So we don't want to see a Y there. We want a dedicated hose for this guy. This is our hose reel switch. So when we are using the hose reel, this simply just pulls straight out. When you're done with it, hit the switch here and it will reel right back in. And yeah, you can take it all the way to the wall. It will automatically let the pressure off of there when it's done. So you can do that as well. This little connection here is going to be for your ice maker or your drinking water faucet. So that is another filter in line specifically just for that drinking water. And I believe that filter is going to be behind the wall when we open this up and show you. The switches across the top here, you have your light. This is just for the compartment light on and off. And then this here is a tank tilt. So this is kind of a new feature we put in there. What that does is while you're emptying your tanks, if you have the engine running with air pressure, we can hit the tilt button. And what that will do is it'll drop this driver's side and raise the passenger side just a little bit so it increases the flow of that out of your tanks, out of the black and gray tank, because it is angled towards this side of the coach. So just by putting that little tilt on there, we can angle it a little bit and get a little more flow going out. It just helps us empty a little bit better. You hit the untilt, it'll go right back to standard ride height. The macerator switch here, that's what controls the macerator that pumps out of the hose here. So just turn that on. We don't want to leave that on, and we don't want to have that on without we have one of these valves open. So make sure that we don't leave it on. It'll burn that up. It does have a thermal override in it, so if it ever quits and stops working on you, just turn it off, let it set for a few minutes, let that cool down, and that may come back on if that thermal overload is retripped. Okay? Next thing here is going to be your dump valves. On the Cornerstone, we are using power gate valves, so you just simply hit the switch and they open and close for you. So these would be in the closed position. The red light means that it's open. We're going to leave those in the closed position. Then this is a monitor panel here. outside, just to be able to see that outside. You can also get to this through your app. You can check your tank levels through your app from the Firefly system, but this gives you your battery, fresh water, gray water, and black water, all going to be displayed out here, or again, you can check that with your app. Moving over here, this is our whole house filter here, so that's what filters everything. Anytime we're putting city water in here, that filters through this filter, and then when you're pulling from the pump, using your water pump and pulling water out of the tank, that is going to also filter through this whole house filter. Now, we do have two faucets here. There's one down low here and one up high. The one down low has a quick connect on it, and when we open this door, you're going to see the hose in there that goes to that quick connect. This one up here is going to be going to the front. So there's another one of those quick connects up front where we can take the same hose from here, hook it up in the front generator compartment, and that gives you a 30-foot hose up front with hot and cold water to be able to wash the front of the coach off. Maybe you got those bugs, things that are hard to get off, and we've had many customers say, hey, I'd like to get some hot water up to the front cap area. So we've made that available through that faucet right there. So let's get in here and take out this panel. We're going to look inside here, show you a couple of valves and things that's inside this compartment, and also where the filters are kind of holding up back here. So let's get this wall off and we'll show you the inside of that compartment. All right, now that we have this compartment out of here, we've got that wall out, just two little thumb screws here. It does give us access to where we hold the hose here. This is that 30-foot hose we were talking about. That is a quick connect to here. It will also quick connect right up to that fitting in the generator compartment. The other things we needed to talk about that are kind of hidden in here is that we do ship these loose inside this wet bay area. So these two filters here, respectively, this goes into the whole house filter, and this one would take the place of that blue tube. Now, don't lose the blue tube. We need that blue tube anytime we're going to winterize or sanitize our system. We need to take this filter out and put that blue tube in and then likely replace this filter. So a couple other valves and fittings back here inside the wet bay is going to be our discharge pipes. So our discharge pipes, there's an 1.5 inch and a 3-inch discharge pipe here. Both of them are on this side here. I know we've got the labels up front here, but both are on the side. So the 3 inches first and the 1.5 inches is in the back. The 3 inch is going to allow you to dump out of the bottom of the coach, which is what we used to call the old stinky slinky. That would just hook up to the bottom of the coach here, and you could dump out through a 3-inch hose. To use the Macerator system, though, we need to close the 3 inch and open the 1.5 inches in the back there so that it is discharging out of this 1.5 inch hose in our compartment. Okay. A couple other things we have in here is these valves that are up top. There are valves for every water line in the coach. So it goes respectively to its locations, whether it's the bathroom sink or the toilets. It is a home run from here to there, so there's no connections inside the floor, inside the walls anywhere in the interior of the coach. So if we do have a leak somewhere, we can simply come in here and turn off that one faucet, that one valve here, and we can disable that one faucet that has the leak and still use the rest of the water system. So there's a couple other things in here that we need to talk about, and one is this valve right over here that comes off of the fresh water pump. So what that is a valve we put in place there for when you're using city water. We want to close that valve off. What that does is prevent water pressure from backflowing through the pump and inadvertently filling your fresh water tank. So we've had a lot of calls over the years that happens. We put the valve in just for that reason. Another valve is going to be right here. This valve is for a new feature that we put in, and that is for the water softener prep. So in the front of the coach, we have a water softener prep. This valve right here will allow you to turn that water softener, send and return to the on position. Otherwise, it's just a bypass, and we're not even going to those hoses up front. So we'll show you that when we get up front. I think that's all we got in here inside the wet bay. We got our winterizer hose here and our low point drains. And then other than that, we're going to put the valve or the cover back on, and we'll go to the next compartment. All right, so the next compartment up from our wet bay is our shore cord and our Aqua-Hot system. So the shore cord being this right here, this extends out. You don't have to have it all the way out. It can be any length you need it to be. We've got a lot of people that say, well, I was told this had to be rolled all the way out to be able to use it. That's not the case. You can have 5 feet rolled out, 10 feet rolled out, anything. The key is that you don't move it while the coach is powered up. The other thing is, before we plug in the coach, we want to make sure that the post breaker where we're plugging it into, that post breaker is turned off. So the same thing if we go to unplug, turn that post breaker off first, the pedestal, make sure that's completely powered down before we plug that in or unplug it. To retract that cord reel, just a switch up here. So if we were going to pull this out, simply pull the cord. If we're going to reel it back in, hit the switch here, and that will reel that back into place. The Aqua-Hot system itself the things we got to remember about that, there is a reporter in here, so that's the controller for the Aqua-Hot system on the back wall. That is down here to be able to control that, but we also have control from that on our Firefly screen inside the coach. So really this is kind of a redundant emergency system, being able to operate this in an emergency. If that Firefly is not communicating with the Aqua-Hot, we can still use our Aqua-Hot. We do have the fuel filter and everything is in this compartment. So the fuel filter is right back here. That is part of the annual maintenance. You want to be changing the fuel filter and the fuel nozzle. And then on a regular basis, we want to check the coolant level, which is going to be in this next bay. But before we move up there, there's a couple more things we want to point out. Transfer switches in the back here. We want to be looking for those 2 red lights. That means that it's working correctly. We want to see the 2 red lights. Most of the time we say red lights are bad. But when it comes to the case of the transfer switch, those 2 red lights indicating that it's operating correctly and we don't have any faults. The other thing on this box here is there's going to be 2 coax line inputs. One is going to be for part cable, and the other is going to be for a yard dish or a portable satellite dish. So if you're staying somewhere where you have a canopy over the top, or you've got some trees covering you and you can't get access to that DirecTV or dish satellite on the roof, you have the ability to take a yard dish, set it out here out in the open, and hook that up to here, and that is already wired into our entertainment center, where you can just switch one cable up there and you'd be utilizing your yard dish rather than the roof-mounted satellite. So a couple options that you have there. So we're going to move up to this next bay here. The next bay is going to be that antifreeze or coolant for the Aqua system. So that's going to be this jug here. We want to be checking that on a regular basis, making sure that that fluid level is staying in between the hot and the cold mark. We don't want it to go below the cold. We don't want it to get above the hot. If it gets above the hot, it's going to boil over. That's why we have this hose here, so it boils out. It'll actually drain out below the coach. We want that thing to be in between the two, and we want to check that when the fluid is hot, because the fluid does expand when it gets hot. So one thing to keep in mind there. Just on the inside of that is our solar panel controller. That's just going to give you a status. There's going to be some lights and things on there that you can look at. Really nothing you can do with that except for the settings that we have in our Firefly system. Other than that, that's going to be just the controller for it, and it's relaying all that information upstairs. Cargo tray on this side, same one that we have on the other side, and it is controlled here by the switch on the door. So they're going to go out both directions, but they will only come out this direction from this side and only go out on the passenger side from the passenger door. In our next compartment here, the same thing, power cargo tray. Again, 1,000 pounds evenly distributed. And then you're going to notice something else in here. So we started shipping loose in the basement is a vacuum. We had some thoughts about the central vac system, and we opted to take that out and just put the dustpan in, and then supply you with a cordless Shark vacuum. So that can be mounted anywhere you want to in the coach. That was the thing that we got from a lot of customers is, I want to choose where I want to put that, so we give you the option to do that just by shipping that loose in the basement. The next compartment here is going to show you our Starling system, our awning controls, and also that water softener prep. So just looking here at these first components, this is just a removable panel. Covers up our Starling system here, and then our awning controls. So these two here are for the awnings. That is just the controllers that operate from the remote. And these two are Starlink. So this is your modem, and this right here is your router. So the router, you can connect directly to that router. You can also connect your Wi-Fi Ranger system, which is tied to everything else in the coach. You can tie that directly to Starlink once you activate that and have internet to every component in the coach through that. This area over here is that water softener prep that we talked about. So we do have this labeled as water softener in, water softener out. There's two valves here, and that's for the low points. That is because if you ever have to winterize the coach, you're going to have to winterize these lines as well. And then just right on the back side, there's another valve here that goes to specifically each one of these ports. So you'll have to turn the valve on in the wet bay and then turn these two valves on to get that to work. Again, if we're winterizing the coach, we want to make sure we drain these out and we run antifreeze all the way up to these ports as well. Obviously, you would want to take your water softener out and just put a pass-through pipe here so that you can winterize the whole system. So let's go up and look at the fender. We got a couple things up inside that front fender in what we call the run bay up there, fuses and things that we'll talk about. So this is our front fender, what we consider the run bay. This has some fuses and some things in it that we'll want to check as well. So we have the light switch here, turn the light on and off inside here that also illuminates the back side of this panel. This is our equalizer leveling system. This is, again, a redundant panel. That's kind of an emergency panel that goes directly to the equalizer system because we have the ability to operate that directly from our dash display. This is the smart level system as well, so you can use an app. You just need to download the equalizer app, and you will be able to control that through an app as well. Fuse panel here is separated into two different sections. One is going to be constant battery, and the other is going to be ignition circuits. So be mindful of that. There's two different power scenarios there. And then this is for our generator extend and retract. So that allows us to get into this front hood here. We'll have to go in and turn the key on to be able to operate that. So in order to get that gen door out, the ignition needs to be on, the park brake needs to be set, and we need to have at least 90 PSI in our air tanks for that to work because it is air driven. So before we do that, I want to show you really what's behind this panel. So there's a small little tab here. We can just pull on this. That allows us to pull out this carpeted panel here, give it a little wiggle, and that's going to expose some wiring and another control panel in here. So this is what we call the chassis PDC box. That's this guy right here. Just got some thumb screws on it. We can take that off. It's got a label on the back side of it with some fuses and relays in there. But just right above that is going to be a row of mini breakers here. Those breakers are specific, and you'll want to know exactly what these are. It's the center two, particularly. Those center two breakers are for your driver and passenger seat. So anytime that driver seat or that passenger seat is not working, we're going to come down and check those. It could be that we turn the chair around. When we turn the chair around, maybe we pinched a wire and it shorted that out, and it would trip that breaker. We can simply come down here and reset that breaker. Or we've had it where we just hold the switch too long on the footrest, it's coming up, and we hold it too long and it trips that breaker. It will not work until we come down, and those are manual resets. So you got to take this panel out, reach in there, and just hit the little black button on top, and that will allow you to reset that breaker. So let's put this back together. We're going to go inside, turn the ignition on, make sure that we have enough air pressure, and then we're going to show you exactly how that generator slide comes out with this button inside this front fender. Okay. Go ahead. So now we have the ignition on. We've made sure that there's air pressure in the coach. We're going to go ahead and hit the switch here and extend that generator slide out front, giving us access to the front cap here. And we'll show you a couple things inside that front cap. So once we get that slid out, it gives you access to the top of the generator here. This is going to be our start-stop switch for the generator. There is a breaker on the front here of the generator. That's something that we have to check on a regular basis. Anytime you take this in for service and have the generator serviced, which it does have a service schedule as well, so the first 50 hours and then 250 after, you need to have that thing serviced. But anytime you take it in, they're going to turn this breaker off, and most likely they will not turn that breaker on when they're done. So that's one thing to check after you have it serviced. Make sure that breaker is in the on position. Fluid levels on the generator itself, this is for your coolant. Inside the little compartment over here on this side, this little hatch is removable, and that gives you access to the oil. To check that as well, the filter and the fuel filter are going to be on this side in that access panel. Two other things that are over here is that quick connect port for your outside faucet. So that's for that hose to connect into, is going to be over here on this side. And then also our windshield washer fluid is going to be inside here on the right hand side. Just directly above the generator here, and it's a box about right here, there is an air filter in here for your dash AC system. So we're going to get a little closer video and closer pictures there showing you how to change that out. That'll be in another video coming out. But we'll show you how to get in there and change that filter out, because that's going to be something we want to do on a regular basis as well. So that kind of wraps up everything that we're going to talk about outside. We're going to take a second and we're going to open the slide rooms. You notice that we had them closed while we walked around the outside. It's just a lot easier to do that. We're not hitting our head on anything. So we're going to take a moment, run the slide outs out, then we'll jump inside and we'll continue our walkthrough of the delivery process on the inside of the coach. All right, now that we're inside, we've got the slide outs out. We're going to talk about some of the things and just kind of go all the way around the coach, starting here on the passenger side or work our way around the coach, come back to the driver's seat, end up here at the dash. So talk about the different things that are in the coach, and on our delivery list, we talk about all of these items as well. So in this front overhead, we're going to talk about our AC overrides, our slide out switches, and the antenna. So start off here with the antenna. This is your off-air antenna. To operate this, just turn the on-off button. It will automatically search for you. So it's going to search for local TV channels. It'll tell you how many it's picked up right here. When it locks onto signals, it'll tell you that. And you can fine tune that here as well. If you want to do another search, you can hit the search button. So we're inside a building, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because it'll sit and search and continue to search for channels and not find them. The next switch here is for your slide out switches. So these can be ran one at a time. We have extend and retract on each one of the rooms. So kitchen, super slide. Super slide is the flush floor, the vanity slide, and the bed slide in the back. So these only can be ran one at a time now. That was a software programming change that we made to the system. And then the one thing you want to know about that is obviously we do have our warning label up here, but in order to run your slide outs, we want those to be run at ride height. So the vehicle needs to be at ride height before we run the slide outs in and out. And then you have to pay special attention to how far you run those out or how far you bring those in. So we do have it listed on the label. We don't want you to overextend or over retract those. So the question is, how do you know that those slide outs are all the way out or all the way in? Simply by listening to the sound of the motor. So we want to run those slide outs in or out. We listen to the sound of the motor. When that gets out to the stop limits, we have stop rods out there and stop limits. When it gets to that stop limit, it will start to wind that motor down. So you hear the pitch change in that motor. At that point, that's when you want to let go of that switch. We don't want to keep holding it until it stops on its own. That's putting too much pressure on the outside wall and the slide out. So just kind of listen for that. You'll get the experience of it once you hear it and you notice it once or twice. You'll kind of get the feel for it and you'll understand, hey, as soon as that starts to bog down, I let go of those switches. This next set of switches here is for our AC override. So that is emergency for the air conditioners. What that does is bypasses our entire Firefly system and all the safety systems in the air conditioner. So because of that situation, we don't want to run these all three at one time, and we don't want to run them for more than 30 minutes at a time. So what we want you to do with these AC overrides, you're stuck somewhere, you're out, you have power into the coach, but you can't operate the ACs from your Firefly system or from the app. So we could come up here. This is going to run the fan and high and the compressor. So it's just going to be ACs. It's not going to be heat. It's just going to be air conditioning. So cold air. It's going to be high fan and compressor, and it's going to run until you turn it off. That bypasses all the safeties, the pressure switch, all that stuff in the AC. So what we want to do is if we're in that situation, turn on number 1, let that run for 30 minutes, then turn number 1 off, go to number 2. Let that run for 30 minutes, turn that off, and go to number 3. And then you can start that cycle over again, but we only want to run one at a time. And all of our ducting is connected together, so if you run one air conditioner, you're going to get air in all 3 zones, just not as much, but you still will get the air in all 3 zones. So that covers what's in this overhead. Let's switch over here to this overhead right here. So this is going to be your traveler satellite system. That's the satellite system that's on the roof. So we simply hit the power button right here. That raises that dish on the roof. It'll search out where it needs to be for the satellite. So you have to have a satellite receiver installed. So you've got to have the DirecTV or Dish Network or Shaw satellite modem installed here in the coach. And then that will automatically search for that signal and lock onto those satellites. So that's what's up in this overhead. So now down here at the front passenger console here, on the front of this console, there's a number of switches. You've got your main power switch, which has a little red light next to it telling us that it's on. That's controlling all the 12 volt inside the coach here. So that's just telling you, hey, I can operate everything 12 volt in the coach if I have that main power on. The next set of switches up is going to be for the step light. So that does your lighting around the step well here and outside underneath the step. And then you have a switch called step power. So the step power is the override to the exterior step. So you come in the coach, you close the door, and the steps run in. If we turn that switch on, it leaves those steps in the out position. So every time we come in the coach, open the door, close the door, those steps will stay in the out position. So it's not a risk of falling out, or you don't have to stand in the step well and wait for that step to go out in order to take a step down. The next switch up is the Firefly switch, 3.5-inch touchscreen. That's going to have master interior lights on it, and then all of your exterior lighting. So the porch lights, security lights, awning lights, that sort of thing, the cargo lights and everything are on there as well. The switch at the very top of that console is for the step slide. So that is the step slide cover. That's just going to cover these stairs here. If you're sitting here in the passenger seat, you're driving down the road, you don't want your feet dangling, you want some place to put your feet. What you would do is run that step slide cover out. Cover comes out and covers the whole step well, so you don't accidentally fall down the steps and you have a place just to rest your feet while you're riding in the passenger seat. So on top of the console here, there's a touchpad. That's the passenger touch screen. There's also a USB and an HDMI. Those connections, USB and HDMI, are going to go up here to this front TV. And then the touch screen is going to allow you to operate everything on this center console, so the passenger actually has access to operate the dash AC system, change radio stations, sorry husbands, volume control, all that can be done from the passenger seat. So they have control of that as well. So when we talk about the seats are kind of the same seats, driver and passenger. These have the massage on them. That is going to be the controller that's housed right here. So we'll kind of have the bubble wrap on this, but this is going to be the controller. Oh, I accidentally hit that and turned it on. So controller here that does massage. This is going to do top and bottom massage here. This is just going to be stored right inside this little loop here that can just hang there, and then the armrest goes down. So it is a 6-way seat like we've had in the past. Operations here, forward, up and down, backwards, and then you have the different varieties here. One is going to be your footrest, and then you're going to have the lumbar in the center here, and then this next one here is going to be to lean it forward and backwards. Now these seats are heated and cooled, so you have a control right here. If you pull up, it's going to be for the heat function, and if you push down, it's going to be for the cool function. Now, those will only operate if the ignition is in the on position. So that's one of those new things that we've got in place. The heat and cool only work if the ignition is on. The other thing about our seats is that they do swivel all the way around so you can face the back of the coach, and that is if you're entertaining guests or anything, you want to swivel those all the way around. There is a key to this though, and the key to that is that this seat needs to be in the very forward position. So we're just going to run this up and show you how this works here. Seat's got to be in the forward position, and it's a great idea to have it in this position as well when you're running the slide outs in. Now there is a lever that is going to be on the seat itself, and got to find it's on this opposite side over here. You pull up on the lever, and then the seat will actually swivel all the way around. So then this gives you the ability to use your footrest and everything facing the rear. Maybe you're entertaining some guests and stuff inside. That gives you the ability to do that. So always make sure it's in the forward facing position before we swivel it. Anytime we're done, make sure that it comes back and locks in place, and then you can run that seat back to where you want to be riding. Now, when you run the seat back, just make sure that you're not getting it back past the slide outs. Obviously, when the slide outs are in, you can only take it back a certain distance, but you don't want to run those slide outs in or out with that seat all the way up against the back of that. So we're going to make our way back through the coach here and talk about some different things. This right here is going to be your controls for the front half of your lights. There's a couple pages on here. You can operate your lights and your shades. So we would just keep going through those, and it gives you the ability to do all of your lights here in the front of the coach and your shades. So all of your shades in the Cornerstone are powered. So they're going to be all controlled through here. The next thing is going to be our furniture. So in this furniture here, we've got theater seats on the driver's side. We've got this sleeper sofa, the hide-a-bed. In order to get to the hide-a-bed, these cushions just come off. The bottom cushion comes off and that hide-a-bed comes out. It is an air mattress. And we'll show you in this cabinet that air mattress pump is actually in the cabinet. So go back to this area here, right above the sofa. We're going to open up these overheads just to show you, because we'll talk about all of the equipment that's in here as well. So TV is a televator system that's operated by this switch over here. This runs your TV up and down. So you're viewing TV, you want to run it up, or you can run it back down. So these compartments up here at the top is kind of your entertainment center. This area over here has got an extra 110 plug here, and we do have the wall plate. That is for your satellite system. So this is where you would put your satellite receiver. Would be housed right here. It has the connections for it here. And then we would run that HDMI cable output across the overhead here and go into the matrix. Now, once we plug into the back of that matrix, that gives us the ability to play that satellite signal, that TV signal on all 4 TVs in the coach. So front TV, the living room, the bedroom TV, and the exterior TV can all be playing the same satellite source. Your Blu-ray DVD player is up in this cabinet as well. And then there's a couple little components. They look like little eyes mounted to those components. There is another little eye here on the wall, and that is so you can use the remotes with the cabinet doors closed. So anytime you use a TV remote, you'll see a little blue flash up here on this wall. That's just repeating that signal inside that cabinet. So kind of takes care of our entertainment center and our sofa here. So moving back into the kitchen, when you guys get your coach, you're going to walk in and open this cabinet and go, oh my goodness, what's going on here? These are all the remotes you have for your coach. So that's going to be all the TVs, the Blu-ray. That is where we ship those remotes. You get to the dealership, they may have them all separated out in the rooms and put into drawers, but that is where we ship them. This box back here is the pump for the hide-a-bed sofa. So you got where all of that stuff is being stored. Across the top here, your microwave. The one thing about the microwave is that we do have a vent on the outside that you need to open before you operate that microwave or use the convection oven. So that's important, because if we don't let that heat out, we can do some damage to the inside of the microwave. So the vent on the outside needs to be open before we operate it. Right above the microwave in this small little cabinet is going to be your stove cover. So color match stove cover just covers your glass stove here. Custom fit goes right in there. So that is going to be, you want that in place so you don't break or drop anything on that glass. That just protects that. So this gets stored right back up here. And then let's talk about the stove for a second. So the stove is a 110 induction cooktop. Induction obviously means you have to have special cookware to work on that. But in order to operate the stove, you do have to be plugged in or have the generator running. Now when you turn that on, you're going to want to turn it on, put your pan on here, and then adjust your temperature. The key to this is that it is a 110 element. Instead of a 220, it's a 110. So you can not get 10 on both burners. It's a cumulative of 10. So if we place 6 here and 4 here, that will work. But I can't do 6 here and 6 here. I can't do 10 and 10. I have to use both burners in equal 10. So that's something, the key feature about that you'll want to remember is that you can't operate those both to the maximum of 10. They have to be equal to 10 throughout the both burners. Just underneath that is our dishwasher. One key thing about our dishwasher is to make sure that it's locked before you travel. So currently the dishwasher is open. We can open it up, put things in it, get ready to do a load of dishes, and that's fine. But then when we get ready to travel, we want to make sure that we lock that. So in order to lock this dishwasher, there's a lock icon here. It's the second button. Now we press it once and it's just going to lock out these touchpads so they don't work. What you need to do is press it and hold it until you hear that second beep, and then you'll physically hear this lock, or if your hand is on it, you'll feel it lock and kind of draw into place. So we're going to go ahead and push that. That was one. That was the second, and it physically locked in place. So now that it's locked, you get the little lock icon here. To get that unlocked, just press and hold that button again, and it'll unlock that drawer for you. So kind of wraps up what we have here in the kitchen. We're going to move into the bathroom, show you the toilet, the controllers for that, and the level sensors that has. So in the stool room here, we've got the toilet control on the back wall there. You have a small flush and a large flush for the economy flush and the regular flush, if you want to call it that. And there's a little light in the bottom right-hand corner that gives you your tank level. Now this is completely separate. The toilet has its own tank levels as compared to the Firefly system, so there may be 2 separate readings there. The sensors are not placed at the same exact level, so there may be a variable there as well. Another thing that's inside this cabinet, we're going to step in here and show you. Inside this mirror compartment is another fuse panel. So this is for our vent fans, for our ceiling fan, and the closet lights in the back. That TV antenna is on here as well. So these are some fuses that we may have to check. And then this label is here because behind this access panel is going to be another M1 controller like we had in the basement. So that's the pin out that gives you the different plugs and the actual pin out of what those are operating. So we may need to get access to that when we're troubleshooting something. Just know that that's inside this cabinet as well. So we're going to step out, go back into the bedroom here, and show you the features here and some things that you'll need to know to operate in the bedroom. So first off, when we get into the bedroom here, I'm going to close this door on you guys and show you this pocket door, because this is a unique pocket door. One thing is, you've seen this was all the way in the wall. That's where we want it to travel, because there's some actuators underneath there that hold that in place while you're driving. But this is a double pocket door, so we want to make sure that when you run this out, that you bring it all the way out, both doors come out, and that this will lock into place. So that's when this handle comes up, and then to get back out, push down on the handle, and then push the doors in. Now from time to time, if you're not pushing these doors in straight, you see that they do wave back and forth. They'll hit a little bit, so we got some carpet guides in there that will hold that, get it in place in the right place. But we want it to lock in that position before we start driving. So come on back here. We're going to talk about the bedroom. This is the bed slide itself. So there are some things underneath here that we want to show you and talk about. There's storage underneath the bed. And what's important about this is where we can store things and where we can't. So there's 2 compartments that are carpeted down here underneath this bed base. And that's specifically where you want to store things, is on the left or on the right. We do not want to store anything in the center section where that ram tube is, that slide out mechanism. The reason being is we got some hoses and some wires down there that have to move in and out with a slide out. If we put anything down there, blankets, we've seen boxes of wine down there in the past, anything we put in there can constrict those wires and hoses, and something could get caught and you could pull something loose. So we want to not put anything in the center here, just use the storage on the left and the right. Even though there's a lot of space there, that's not a storage area. So just remember that. We put the bed back down here, and in the bed overhead are going to be your lighting controls for the bedroom. It's going to be underneath here, and also the controller for the fan. That's just the little white switch here. It's got a 1 and a 2 on it. That operates the fan in low or high speed. The switch panel that's underneath there is just like the other switch panels for the fireplace system. That operates all of your lights in the bedroom itself. So that's kind of the controls underneath there. We did put in the overhead here, I believe it's right there in the middle, we have a 110 outlet inside that overhead as well. So for those of you that have a CPAP, that was something you guys asked for, to be able to plug that in up there and just have the hose come down from the overhead cabinet. So that's a bonus for you as well. So we'll take a step back here into the rear bathroom to show you. Again, we have another Macerator toilet with that switch on the wall. Has its own sensors and has its own level. So it's going to show you that, and it may be different than the front toilet, all based on where that's positioned on the tank itself. The other features here are inside the shower. So open the shower door. It does have a lock on it. We want to make sure that that's locked anytime we're not using it, especially if we're driving down the road. We don't need this shower door opening. You can see if it does open, it's going to hit this wall and probably shatter, so we don't want to do that. Key things we're going to talk about in here is obviously our faucet here. That's our normal shower faucet, just like you would have in your home. So temperature control is here, and this is your water on and off. And then this little guy here, this little icon, or this little blue dot, we call it, is controlled by this valve here. This valve is your water miser. So what that means is that we can bypass the water from the shower. We can send that right back to the fresh water tank, and that gives you even hot water. So you turn the faucet on, it's not quite as hot as you want it. Bypass this valve, it diverts that water back to the fresh water tank, runs it back through the Aqua-Hot, heats it up again, and then you get hotter water. When this turns white, it's going to be at that temperature that you want that hot water. So then we can turn this valve back, and that will allow the water to come back out of that shower. All right, now that we're done in the shower, we've made sure that that door is locked before we leave that. So in case we drive this, that door's not swinging open. Let's go take a look back here in the closet area and in our washer dryer. So a couple things we want to talk about with the washer and dryer is, number one, with the dryer itself, we want to make sure that we are always cleaning out our lint trap. So this is our lint trap for the dryer, just kind of pops out of there. We want to make sure that we're always cleaning that out. And then on the washer, while it doesn't have necessarily a lint trap that you can clean out every time, it does have a water trap in the bottom panel there. So that is something we have to maintain as well, because you will leave things in your pockets, coins, toothpicks, dollar bills, mints, those kind of things. It's going to get caught in that drain, and the drain has a screen on it, just like we have on a residential washer as well. So in order to access that, we simply will go down to the bottom there and take out those 3 screws. That allows us to take the piece of plastic out. And then there's little clips on the side here where we can take this bottom portion out of the washer, and right in the center there is going to be that clean out for the washer. So make sure that we're doing that on a regular basis. Just kind of put that in the back of your mind to have that as a maintenance. If you ever get any code on here, usually that code is going to be because it can't drain properly, and when we get that, it's because we have something stuck in that screen. So make sure we're maintaining that as well. On the back side of this compartment here, or this wall, is an access panel to get you in behind the washer and dryer. That gets you access to the water lines, to the drain line, to the 110 plugs for the washer and the dryer, and also to the dryer vent hose. So we had to get in there and clean that out to the outside. We could do that from there. On this side is just going to be simply our dresser. It does have an Aqua-Hot heat exchanger, so this back portion of the coach is heated and cooled as well. So make sure we're keeping that clear, not stacking anything in front of that in case we're in cold weather. We want to keep that heated back here because of the water lines. So just kind of moving forward, the other things that we can talk about in here is the different switches that we have. In some of our areas, we have just a toggle switch. This is just going to be for the closet lights here. Just simply pushing on the top of that, turns them off, turns them on. It's just a toggle operation. And then obviously we have our touch pads here that operate all the lights in your respective rooms. So we're going to kind of move forward here and go into the bedroom, talk about the TV and the sound bar in the bedroom. So this is our bedroom TV here, center mounted, and it is on a hinge here, so we have access behind it. That is going to show you our safe back behind the TV, and then the sound bar is going to be here. Now, all this is hooked up and it goes inside this cabinet here. So all your access to your wiring and for your DVD player is going to be inside this closet cabinet as well. So we've got our port here where we can plug in additional items here and get that to the TV. So that's kind of our electronics inside there. Moving forward in the coach again, back into the kitchen area with the pantry and the living room. So in the pantry itself, you open the cabinet. We did put the struts in there so it keeps this door open. One thing we want to remember is with these pantry drawers. Now notice that this has got a little lock to it, and this is sometimes where we don't get this quite in place. So you're going to have to tug on it a little bit when you go to put it back in place. Don't just put it here because that's going to allow you to have this thing slide open if it's got any weight to it. Make sure you push it all the way in so it actually locks in place. Another lock that we have is on the washer and dryer. No, we're standing at the refrigerator, by the way. This is not the washer and dryer. At the refrigerator itself, there is a safety or travel lock right here. So we open that up, gives us access to the inside of the refrigerator. One thing we want to make sure we're doing is locking that anytime we go to travel. So make sure we close that back up so that's locked in place. So another thing we have in the slide out here at this Dinette booth is storage underneath the booth seat itself. So simply pull a little tab here and that will allow you to open this drawer. While it is a nice little convenient drawer, it's not designed for a whole lot of weight. So this is not the ideal place to store your gold bars because this is in the slide out and it is in a mechanism underneath your dinette. So one thing to keep in mind, there's storage there, but not really designed for a whole lot of weight. So the next thing is going to be your theater seating. This is pretty simple. Might as well take a break here and show you how this works. This is the adjustable headrest, which is powered. That's going to be the silver mechanism here. That's going to operate your headrest. And then the black buttons here operate your footrest. So you can recline, watch TV, talk to your neighbors, or just take a nap when you're done shooting videos. All right, so as we're sitting in the driver's seat, we're going to talk about all the things that are incorporated in the dash here. We'll just kind of go right around the dash and talk about the switches. So on the driver's side console, we've got some switches, tag dump, you've got your generator start, you've got a battery boost, and your dome lights. So real simple, the dome lights is just going to control these two lights that are right above us, so we can turn those on and off. The battery boost switch is your auxiliary start switch, or anytime you have dead house batteries or dead chassis batteries, you can hit the switch and use the other battery to start. The generator start, simple, that's to start or stop the generator. And then the tag dump. So the tag dump switch is for the tag axle in the back if you're taking a tight turn. And when we say tight turn, we're really talking about when you do a U-turn or you're doing a complete circle here. Just a normal turn, you don't have to worry about this at all. But if you're taking a very tight turn, you would press that. It does say hold on it, but if you press and release it, it's going to dump that tag axle just enough for you to get around the corner or to make that tight turn, then it will air back up. So those are the things that are on this driver's side console. Up front here on the driver's side console is your Allison shift pad. We'll go over that in detail as well because there's a couple modes that we can go to. You've got your reverse, neutral, and drive. So those are your basic things that you'll need to know. Is just the R is reverse, N is neutral, and D is drive. The mode button puts you in economy mode. The only time you'd really want to be using that economy mode is if you're on a straight, flat, plain surface. Anytime you're going up and down hills, mountains, you do not want to use economy. The coach just isn't going to perform very well. All right. Next over here on the side is going to be the parking brake. That's the yellow knob here. And then right next to that are headlight switches. So we do have automatic headlights as well, your daytime running lights or your low beams. But you turn on your headlight switch and this will control your headlights and your fog lights. Also your illumination here. You can turn that up or down. There's a dimmer switch here. On the side of the console is a USB port. That is for us to be able to do software updates. That's what we use to get software into the CCI and into the GIC there. And there's another component behind the dash here called the CIM. That is where we would get that software through that USB. Up underneath here as well is a small access panel. There, I just pulled that off. That's the small access panel. So that small panel right there opens up the OBD, the onboard diagnostic tool for the chassis, as well as the air override switch. So if you went to start the coach and there was no air in the coach, you have to have that brake signal to get that coach to start. That is the override air switch that's going to be down in this compartment. Further up, let's go up here to the steering wheel itself. In order to operate the steering wheel tilt or telescope, there is a small foot pedal over here on the left-hand side. So if we just push on that, that allows us to tilt, and we should be able to telescope. Right there it is. So that's all the way out and up and down. All right. Number of things here on the steering column. Obviously, we have our turn signal switch and our high beam over here on the left-hand side. Underneath that is a little silver tab, and that is going to be for your hazards. So in order to get the hazards to work, you pull out on the silver tab. They will start flashing. To turn those off, just operate your turn signal in the normal operation. The rest of the stuff on here is going to operate while the ignition is on. So we're going to go ahead and just turn the key on. We'll get the light bar to come up, the GIC up here in front. We'll get that to come on, and we'll show you some of the things that this steering pod will do. You've got some switches here on the sides. You're going to have volume and mute and on and off. So this is volume up and down. This is mute on and off. On this side over here, you are going to have your telephone, which is going to be the top button here. It's your telephone to answer or end a call. And then the bottom button is going to be for your engine brake. So the engine brake is just a little toggle switch here on the side of your steering wheel. So when you turn that on, you'll see that the icon comes up here on the dash itself, and then you can go through the different levels. So we can go through high, low, and medium. We'll go back up to high here, and then we can turn that completely off. So when that goes away, it's off. On the rest of this pod here, you have your headlight flash. That's going to be this, so a courtesy flash of your headlights. And then the rest of this is your cruise control or high idle. So we hit the on button. It allows us to use the cruise control. If the engine's running, we can press and hold the reset or the set button. That goes into a high idle. Just by pressing that one time, it goes into, I want to say that it's right at 1,000 RPM. Then you can continue to hold that as well. To cancel your cruise, simply press this button here, and it will cancel that cruise. So let's move over to this pod here. Again, we said your volume here and your mute is on top here, and to turn the radio on and off or change the source is pushing down. The rest of this is going to be your courtesy flash here. That is going to be for your marker lights, courtesy flash on and off. And then your wiper control. So this center pod right here is wiper control. Now you do have automatic rain sensing wipers. So anytime you turn the ignition on, that is activated. The auto rain sensor is activated. If you want to turn that off, we can press this off button here. That turns off the automation, and now you are controlling that. So this is also going to be your delay, whether or not you want that to have a time delay. So the old wipers, you would press it once, and then you'd count your time, and then you'd press it again, and that would set your time. On this particular one, this is your auto function, or we're doing a time delay on it. The center pod here is to wash the windshield, and then the left pod here is to do high or low. Again, washing it, we want to make sure there's fluid on there. We don't ever want to run the wipers dry because they are such a large wiper. It puts a little too much tension on that wiper motor, and it can also damage the blade. So make sure there's always moisture on the windshield before operating that. This bottom button here is for your air horn. So there's going to be an icon that shows up on your gauges right here when you activate that air horn. That's just the difference between having your regular city horn or an air horn itself. So that's what that control is for. Now this bottom pod right here will do several different things. There is one button here on the left. It's called Screen View. What that is going to do is take what I have displayed here and give me the ability to display it right here in the center. So by hitting the Screen View, it will take us to the navigation, and it will take us to the camera system. So there is a kind of a caveat to this. It has to process that and get that signal over, but driving down the road, you would be able to have both of those in play. One of the things that we do know we have out there is there's a couple coaches that your park brake has to be released, and I was thinking that was going to be one of these, but it is taking some time to get that out there. But it has your exact navigation and your cameras. Those should match from your GIC to your CCI here on the side. So that is what the Screen View button is for. We'll go back to our normal Screen View here, where the gauges are in the center. The rest of these are for the radio control. The source here is going to be able to control the radio, and then your arrows over, that's basically your tune arrows. The center pod is specifically for this bottom corner of the gauges. So that is going to be controlling these gauges. So if I go ahead and put the down arrow here, you're going to see we can cycle through several menu options, different things, all of our messages, our faults. We can go into settings there, and it's going to be your normal odometer. So anytime you get off on a page and say, I need to go back to my odometer, if you just hit the home screen, that'll take you right back to your trip odometer. and then you have that information there as well. So that kind of takes care of the steering wheel. Let's shift over here and talk about the center console and all the available options that are on the center console. So looking at this, obviously we have the camera screen at the top. You do have the ability to change your view. So right now we are on the 2 pictures. We can go to each side. We can just go through and show you some of those different things there. We also have a settings page where we can go in and look at some of those. It is going to ask us for a password. We're not going to go into that right now. We'll do that into our detailed videos that we're going to do. So go back to our normal view there. So that's basically your camera system. The overhead view, do one more right here, because what that will give us is this right here. We should be able to take this entire screen and make it our overhead. So this is kind of nice driving down the road to be able to see that entire screen all the way around. Maybe you're parking your coach, you want to be able to see that full view with nothing else. It gives you a great glimpse of what's around the coach. Just by pushing the X here, we can get out of that, go back to our normal screen. So the rest of this down here at the bottom, we'll just go through our audio sources. You're going to select audio and then go to source, and that gives you your available sources that you have to choose from: Bluetooth radio, USB port, or our Sirius radio if you've activated that service. This climate control is only going to be operational when the ignition key is on. This gives us the ability to run the dash air conditioner. So you've got your modes down here in the center, which basically is telling you where your air is coming from, your blower motor control here, your temperature control, and then this is to recirculate the air, basically putting it in max AC. Sync button will allow the driver to control the passenger. And then you have your max AC and your AC here. This does have a passenger control on it. The passenger can control both. Unless you go to defrost, then it's only going to be controlled here. And whatever you set on that defrost, it automatically goes to full fan and heat when you select defrost. So that's one thing to remember on there as well. Moving on to the shade icon, this gives you the ability to do your day and night shade. Now the powered shades on the Aspire are only going to be the front 2 shades. There is kind of a safety built into this that you cannot run these shades down while the ignition is on. You can run your day shades down while the ignition is on, but you have to press and hold that button. It's not just a one-touch operation. The night shades are completely cut off. They will run up in the event they're down right now, and we would hit the up button. It will run up with the ignition on, but that's the only way they're going to run. On your mirrors and your controls, this gives you the ability to control your mirrors. So to adjust our mirrors up and down, you need to select what mirror you want to operate. So the blue line indicates what mirror we're operating, and then your arrows give you those. This is the defrost, so we can hit the defrost. That's the heat in the mirrors. Then we can switch to our pedals. That's just making our pedals go in and out. And this is the secondary camera control, where we can choose what camera we want to. That was originally what we put in before we had the touch button, so just another added ability to operate those cameras. We'll come back here to the GPS in a second. That one's going to take a little bit, so we'll shift over here to leveling. The leveling system is going to be air and hydraulic. So travel, manual, and auto all go to the valid air leveling system. The jacks go to the equalizer hydraulic. So that's that panel that we seen outside in the front fender. We're basically going to operate that from inside here. So we can still do our auto level process. We can manually do the front, rear, left, or right. Remember, those run in pairs. So you can only run 2 at a time. If you hit the left, both left sides are coming down. If you hit the front, both the front jacks are coming down. So they're going to run in pairs. The all retract is going to be how we leave. When we go to leave, we're going to start the engine, get it to high idle. So we're building air pressure, then we'll hit all retract. That pulls all the jacks up at one time. All right. When we're going to the air leveling system, you've got travel mode. Let's get back to the travel mode here. Maybe. There we go. So go back to travel. It's because my ignition is not on, or my engine is not running, so it's not going to have the air pressure there to build that up. But we can go through travel. You have the option of doing a high ride. Normal ride is where we're going to operate all the time. So anytime this coach goes over 5 miles an hour, it's going to automatically go to normal ride height. You can't have the high ride or the low ride when we get that speed. Manual gives us the ability to operate each airbag. Again, it's not going to allow you to get this into a twist. It would actually come up on the screen here and say twist, and it will stop you from doing that. So it continues to make the parameters so that we stay within a good allowance where we're not twisting this chassis up too much. All right, and then the auto level, simply going to be this. When we put it in auto, It's going to auto level the coach based on the airbags rather than the hydraulic leveling. So it started that process right now, and you can hear it probably dumping some air. We're moving around a little bit. If we go ahead and hit travel, it's going to stop that process and try to achieve normal ride height. Now, because I'm not running, the engine's not running, I'm not going to have enough air pressure to get to normal ride height. It's going to attempt it, but we're not going to have enough. All right, going down to the phone controls, this is going to be where we connect the phone. And again, we're going to go back through these in detail to show you exactly how to connect that phone and what all that operates in the process. The next icon here is going to be your lights. So you have the ability to operate your dome light from the touchscreen. Our docking lights are going to be all the way around the coach. And then we have a couple master switches here. So master interior lights and exterior. These are not going to give you status. So if we hit one of those, you see that it's not highlighted blue right now where this one is. That's indicating that it's on. Our badge light's indicating that it's on. But these don't have a status. That is because of our communication between the two systems. We will not display a status there. So just because it doesn't have a blue icon doesn't mean it's on or off. You just select it from there, and that's what's going to happen. Badge light and accent light. The badge light is the Entegra badge on the front and the rear. The accent lights are going to be the C lights, so around your headlights, that C that we have. And then you have the ability to dim those as well. So that's with this controller here. And we've added this as well, the auto off time. So we can set it to go off. We've heard this phone call a lot, which is one of the reasons why we put this on there. We've got customers say, you know, I really like those lights. I want to turn them on, but I don't want them on all night. Some of my neighbors are complaining that it's too bright. So you have the ability to dim those down. Now we can set them on a timer. So, hey, we want them on for the evening, but we want them to go off, and we don't want to have to worry about them going off. You can set that to automatically go off at a specific time. On the utilities page, this is our operation of your generator, your auto gen start, and also your house temperature here. So we can set what we want this front zone to be, and that translates to the Firefly system controlling the air conditioners. Step slide cover, extend and retract, that's the same thing as we have on the passenger side console. It's just being able to be controlled from here. And then our entry door and cargo door locks here, where we can lock and unlock the doors from there. On the settings page, when we look at the settings page, there is a reset. This is important here. The reset button right here allows you to reset this entire screen. So if something happens, it freezes up, something's not looking right, the best thing to do is go in and reset that. And then this option right here, that is the output to the TV. So you can output your cameras or your navigation to any TV in the coach through the Matrix system. So we would want to turn this on by selecting this here. That gives you your navigation, or you can do your cameras. In a sense, you're being able to use your cameras. You could go to the bedroom TV and put this camera feed on your bedroom TV. So that acts as kind of a security camera system. You could have that on all the time if you wanted. The QR code right here is going to give you some product information about this particular system, the valid CCI system. That's also where you will find any software updates that are available for this operating system. So one way we're going to check that is if we go into settings here, it's going to have some system information, and then it will give you your revision. So this is the revision that we're talking about right here. You will be able to go out onto that QR code, scan that, go to their website, and it will give you, if there is an update available, it will give you that revision number. You have the ability to download that and install that. We're going to show you guys how to do that in a later video as well. So that kind of takes care of that screen here. Obviously, we have these buttons down here. This is going to be our volume control. Anytime we select this, gives you your pop out for a volume. This is the mute button, or we can turn the volume on so we mute it. There's no volume. Same thing with these. This is going to be your status of where you're at on your controls. So if we go back to climate, that's going to be these here. If we turn the fan on, that's going to be your status of your fans. So this controller down here is kind of the backup or the bypass. That's kind of a redundant control. It will do the exact same thing. So if I turn this dial here, you'll see the fan speed go up. Same thing with the temperature. We can adjust the temperature from here. Easier to reach over and grab those rather than going through the whole screen possibly. So one thing to remember there. So that pretty much covers all of this portion. There is a passenger side touchscreen over there as well. We'll go through that in detail on a later video when we go through all of these components in detail, showing you how to connect to them, how they operate, and what each function is. So we're going to change positions here. We'll go back to the Firefly screen and talk about the Firefly screen, and then we'll also go through the Victron controls as well. All right, the passenger touchscreen, which gives you the ability to operate everything on the center console. Everything on that screen is duplicated, but that will only come on when the ignition is on. So back at the Firefly screen, this is going to be our automation screen for the entire coach. So we're just going to go through a couple icons here. Obviously the tabs down the side here are giving you another page. So the home page is what you'd see on a normal basis. That is going to be your master light on and off. This is your room temperatures here, telling you what the temperature is in the room. And then you have your tank gauges here. You can turn the water pump on and off from here. We can lock and unlock the entry door. These down here are going to be some statuses for you. And then generator start and stop. And we have our Aqua-Hot controls right here on the main page as well. This kitchen vent fan is the only way to operate that kitchen vent fan. It's going to be here on the home page. And then we have our battery voltage, both house and chassis. And the AGS auto gen start you can enable right here, press and hold that as well. So we'll just kind of do an overview of what's going on each screen. This is your electrical status page. So it's basically telling you what power you have incoming and how we're charging. It is just going to be giving us a status. All of our charging main stuff is going to be coming from the Victron screen, which we'll get to here in a second. But on your display here, this is one of the key things that we can take away from here. When we're plugged into shore power, this is going to show that we have incoming power. The white line here with the black triangles is telling us where that power is going. So we can confirm by looking at this page, we are plugged in, it is going through the breaker box, it is getting to the inverter charger, and we are actively charging our battery. So that's part of the status there. This center section right here is our EMS. That's the energy management system. So that will tell you if one of those components are not working. Let's say we're plugged into 30 amp power, you had all three ACs on and the electric element in the Aqua-Hot. It's going to turn those off. So this right here would say shed off to the side, because what we've done is essentially turn that off so that we have power to run the air conditioners. Well, that's what that is going to do. The rest of this is going to be a status. You have a couple of other options here as well, electrical settings and solar controller. Again, when we do our in-depth video of each one of these components, we'll go back through that to show you those. On the lighting page, this is going to be all of your lighting controls. So you have interior and exterior. Any one of those icons with an arrow on it is a dimmable circuit. So you can see that all these arrows here are dimmable light circuits. This bed reading light does not have that, so it's not a dimmable circuit. You have master light, interior master on and off, and panel lights on and off, and exterior on and off. If we were to go through and change a couple of these, turn a couple off, and then hit the off button, when we hit the on button again, it memorizes that setting and will only turn those on that we had on. Now, if we press and hold the on button for 3 seconds, it turns all of the lights on in the coach. That's kind of the point of having the master light switch. Going down to our temperature controls, this is going to be for your air conditioners and your Aqua-Hot. So we can control our air conditioners here. Each zone is going to have its own control. You'll see we can turn on cool, heat pump, or the Aqua-Hot, and then we turn on auto. So in auto, you set a temperature, and there's an algorithm there that we have in place that it gets to a certain temperature, turns off, or it gets too cold, it turns the heat pump on, it gets too hot, it turns the AC on. So there's an algorithm we have working in the background that operates that. Down across the bottom, you have your bay. That's going to be for the basement, the cargo area, which is only heated. There's no air down there. And then this is your floor. So that is the in-floor heat that we have. Basically what that is using radiant heat. We're circulating that hydronic fluid through the entire floor to create a warm floor for you. Going to the exterior page, so this is going to be the exterior, do slide outs, awnings, and shades if we had them, the outside shades if we had those powered. So it's always going to give you this warning page. Again, always make sure you have plenty of space out there. We want to make sure your clearance is adequate before you run your slide outs out or you run your awnings. Just going to be a reminder here to do that. When we get to this page, you have the option of doing your slide outs or your awnings. So when we look at slide outs, you have the extend and retract. You can only run one at a time. And again, same thing we talked about up front. Make sure you're holding that button. You don't want to overextend or over retract. So as soon as you hear that motor bog down, we want to release that button and allow that slide motor to stop. On the awnings, these are all set up with limit switches, except for the door awning. I believe you have to press and hold that one to get it to stay out. So the rest of these we can do extend and retract. Same thing on the awnings. We can also do this from an app, so we'll show you that here in a little bit as well. On your settings page, this is kind of going to be your troubleshooting page here. You have network diagnostics, where we can go in and see all of these circuits that are on, and it's going to show us whether or not it is on or off. So we'll go in that in a second. Aqua-Hot Diagnostics is the same thing. That's the controller that's down in the basement, is duplicated upstairs. Then you have your settings. So we have a floor plan, switch panels. All of your switch panels in here are wireless, so it will give you those exact connections. And then the mobile app, we'll talk about that as well. So let's go into the network diagnostics. This is where we're talking about it. We'll tell you those circuits that are on. It will also give us some diagnostic on that particular circuit. So there's going to be some pluses and some negatives that show up in here. If everything was turned on, this is giving you what has power output and what has power input, and it's going to tell you whether it's a positive signal or a negative signal. So we can just go through those, see everything that's on. The defaults and devices and faults page is going to give us everything that's connected to the network and its status. So it gives us their firmware and the configuration that it has on it. So that's kind of a troubleshooting tool to understand what's working and what's not. And then anytime we have any faults in the system, it will display it right here on this faults page. Solar controller diagnostics, that's going to go into the solar settings. We'll go back to the electrical page when we do the in-depth and show you what that is as well. So back to this main page of our settings. When we go into the mobile app, it's going to come up with that code, the QR. You want to download that application, and then you will be able to operate this coach through an app. So the Mira app itself is going to be a Bluetooth-based app. You're only going to be able to operate that inside the coach. We also have the option of getting a Eclipse app, which will allow you to operate your coach anywhere based off the internet. So a couple options that we have to look for there. All right, so that kind of sums up what we have on the Firefly screen. Let's go ahead and move down to the Victron screen and take a look at that. All right, so on the Victron screen here, this is going to be your home page. This is giving us our status of where we're at. This front top left corner here is going to be the grid, so that is basically telling us what we're connected to. If we have shore power here, we are connected to shore power. That gives us our reading here of line 1. Now, we're only using line 1 as the circuit, the inverted circuit, to display, so you are going to have 0 on line 2. This is the inverter down in the basement. It's giving you your status lights. That's the yellow and the green, so we'll get in depth of that as well. And then our AC loads right now, we're actually consuming 416 watts of power. This coming out of the inverter, these little bubbles you see, is the direction that electricity is flowing. So we are currently charging right now. We are at 14.7 volts, 19.5 amps. The battery state of charge is at 100%. To go into some of the settings, just to give you a little idea of how this works, this is going to be our home page. If you tap the screen, you get 2 icons down here. By pressing the menu button, will take us into the devices that are connected to it. So this is your inverter itself. We can go into the inverter and we can see some data on that. Again, we will go in depth in a later video to show you all the different things we can do and also how to connect to this. They do have an app and a portal that we would want to connect to be able to get that information for you. So something that we're going to go into another video and show you. We just wanted to give you the overview of what this controller was. This is your Victron Energy controller that is displaying your status of your charging system on the coach.